going to the Waxwork.
A wrong picture, Tony.
Welcome, I'm Tom, and this is Horribly Fantastic Films. This is where we talk about movies that are generally, bad, but can provide such fun that they're worth viewing, collecting, or, ejecting from a clay pigeon thrower and blowing out of the sky. And today's movie is exactly one of those films, Waxwork. Now, to get it out of the way before you go running off to watch this movie is about 96 minutes long, and 80 minutes of it is boring, bland, and a little unwatchable. But that final 10 to 15 minutes redeems the whole movie. So let's cover this movie while using our best friend and summary provider, Wikipedia, who is notoriously spotty and has the ability to completely jumble the facts. Let's get started. In a small suburban town, a group of college students, Mark, China, Sarah, Gemma, James, and Tony, visit a mysterious wax museum. Well, Wikipedia, we're jumping the gun here. First, we have to talk about the actual beginning of the movie, where a guy is set on fire to a Chips Ahoy's commercial song. And of course, we can't forget Mark's freak out over not having his coffee.
But Mom, I need the caffeine badly.
And your caffeine, sir.
But I guess they didn't really play into the movie. Well, I mean, the guy being burned alive and the thief stealing the ambulance did play into the movie, but I guess not to Wiki. But back to the plot. In a small suburban town, a group of college students, Mark, China, Sarah, Gemma, James, and Tony, visit a mysterious wax museum. Their trip was caused by Sarah and China's earlier encounter with David Lincoln, a taciturn gentleman who claims to own the exhibit and extends them an invitation. And, the real reason for the visitation is actually China's obvious, horniness.
I'm having a private showing tonight, at midnight.
Good time. After dinner, but before breakfast.
Also, I love this little idea that Lincoln is actually secretly laying down behind the fence, and he just pops up and flats himself, all in the pursuit of being mysterious.
Man, was that close.
Yeah. In the museum, they encounter several morbid displays, all of which contain stock characters from the horror genre. Well, first, Wiki, we have to mention that there are actually two other workers in the Wax Museum, Mickey Rooney and Lurch. They don't play a huge part in the movie, outside of being on the movie poster, but I just feel like they should be mentioned. Tony and China, unintentionally, no, Wiki, it was very intentional. Tony and China very intentionally entered the two separate pocket dimensions as depicted by the displays by crossing the exhibit's barrier rope. Well, now I feel like I jumped the gun on Wikipedia a little bit right there. They didn't intentionally travel to the pocket dimension, but they did intentionally cross the barrier rope. Because everyone in this movie has the interest in touching the exhibits. Anyways, Tony is at the cabin where a werewolf attacks him, played by the wonderful John Rhys Davies. This was right after Indiana Jones 2. So on the inside, I'm thinking, John, no, you're better than this. And then I think about how I really only know him from Indiana Jones and Lord of the Rings. And I begin to wonder if this is more on par for the course. But a hunter and his son, though, arrive and try to kill the creature. The son fails and is torn in half. And his dad, boss, doesn't even cry or become sad. Must have been his least favorite son. But the son fails and is ripped in half while the hunter shoots the werewolf and then shoots Tony. Because he was bitten, Wikipedia. Because he was turning into a werewolf. Wiki acting like the hunter was just dropping people. Anyways, China is sent to the Gothic castle where the vampires attack her and Count Dracula turns her into a vampire. That's it? That's all that Wikipedia has to say on this? Alright, for a little more context. By the time China is killed, 40 minutes of the movie has gone by, and a huge chunk of it was devoted to China. This movie is like an hour and a half long, and China's vampire journey is like 15 minutes long. And Wiki just sums it up with she's attacked by vampires and turned into a vampire by Dracula. That's it? Wikipedia is not going to mention the eating of the Tartar, the attack by Dracula's son, finding China's scenario husband who has his leg severed. Also, the guy is like so chillax about losing his leg until someone is laying on top of it. Then it becomes just comedy gold. But this Wikipedia page won't even mention how China killed 3 vampires, one of them with a wine rack. Her entry's just 1 sentence long. It's just, okay. Back to the plot. 2 of the other students, Mark and Sarah, leave the museum unscathed. Later, Jonathan, a college jock who was sleeping with China, arrives at the Wax Museum looking for China, but the Phantom of the Opera display gets his attention as David Lincoln walks him into the display.
Would you like a closer look?
Really?
Step in, please.
Yeah, that's a fun way to say shoved. Walks him. I'm going to use that from now on. No, officer, I didn't shove that guy. I walked him out. Mark, meanwhile, goes to a pair of investigating police detectives. Well, they're investigators. They're not investigating the Wax Museum yet. He and Inspector Roberts meets Lincoln as he lets the Roberts investigate the museum, because Mark told him all these outlandish claims, so the officer, feels the need to investigate. As Marks and Roberts leave after, Lincoln tried to shove Roberts into another exhibit, Mark recognizes Lincoln. Later, Roberts realizes that some of the displays look like some of the other missing people, then comes back to the museum, cuts off a piece of China's face, puts it in a bag, and walks into the mummy display.
Wait, what did he say?
Oh my gosh. Oh, this is all that Wiki does all the time. It just leaves things out. Now, the first part is correct. Roberts realizes that he recognizes some of the faces. He and his partner head back to the museum. Robert tells his partner to wait for him while he heads inside. Upon entering the museum, he walks up to the China Dracula exhibit and, pierces her face and finding black tissue underneath. He then bags some of China's face into the bag. For evidence and forensics, all of which is admissible in court, as it was confiscated without a warrant. He then sees the mummy exhibit, which caught his eye earlier when Lincoln tried to walk him into the display, and just like everyone else, he is overcome with the desperate need to touch the exhibit. The mummy throws him into the tomb. I gotta read a little more ahead. Let me just correct this. First, the guy, the older man, brings the mummy to life. Roberts tries to save the older man and woman.
Have you got a gun or anything? Yes, my bag on the other side of the tomb.
Who may or may not be his wife in this scenario. The older man somehow stabs the mummy in the back while staring at its face. The mummy kills him, turns his attention on Roberts after throwing the woman into the tomb. Then the mummy gives him the same treatment before the exhibit closes out. Later, Robert's partner sneaks into the museum and gets his neck broken by Junior, a tall butler. A tall butler? That's how Wikipedia describes Lurch? Well, I mean, it's not actual Lurch. And why is it in quotations? Anyways, Lincoln scolds Junior for killing the partner because they needed just 2 more people for the exhibits, and with him, it could have been 1 more person. Mark, meanwhile, takes Sarah to the attic of his house where he shows her an old newspaper detailing the murder of his grandfather, which was seen in the prologue, which Wikipedia didn't mention up until right now. The only suspect was David Lincoln, his chief assistant, whose photograph closely resembles the museum owner. And by closely, it's a dead giveaway. I should also mention, since Wiki doesn't, Sarah finds a book about Marquise de Sade, who she eventually winds up in the exhibit of. Her discovery of the book is a little weird. The book hums and glows and calls to her. It's the only time outside the Wax Museum that something abnormal happens, so maybe the book has the same powers as the Wax Museum. I don't know. and it's never explained. The two, Mark and Sarah, then consult the wheelchair user Sir Wilford. Wheelchair user? Why not just say wheelchair bound or simply Sir Wilford? Why wheelchair user? Oh my god, my brain is treating this sentence like the wheelchair is a special attachment or an item, or it's his superpower. His wheelchair doesn't even, play a part in the movie. Why don't we don't even have to mention the wheelchair? Let's just move on. They consult wheelchair user Sir Wilford. Oh my god. A friend of Mark's grandfather, who explains how he and Mark's grandfather collected trinkets from 18 of the most evil people who ever lived, and that Lincoln stole the artifacts. Why 18 artifacts, you say? Well, it's simple. 18 is divisible by 3, which equals 666.
Your grandfather, bless him, had collected over the years 18 trinkets belonging to 18 of the most evil men that have ever been.
Well,
So divide 18 into 3?
6, 6, and 6.
Yes, the number of the devil.
But a lot of numbers are divisible by 3.
Don't argue with me.
Back to the plot. Lincoln, having sold his soul to the devil, wants to bring their previous owners to life by creating some wax effigies and feeding them the souls of victims, a concept taken from the Haitian voodoo, who I guess is supposed to be this guy in the museum. I don't know. This whole thing is supposed to give Mark reasoning for, wanting to stop Lincoln from trying to take over the world. But, Mark already has reasoning for stopping Lincoln. Like the death of China and his friends. We don't even need the magic amulets or the dead grandfather for this movie. Anyways, providing all 18 wax effigies with a victim would bring about the voodoo into the world.
Shall live again, destroying the world with the help of their possessed. The voodoo end of the world, when the dead shall rise and consume all things.
And a little more added to the plot. Upon Mark and Sarah leaving the house, Sir Wilfrid makes a special call to someone about the locations of Lincoln. On the advice of Sir Wilfrid, Mark and Sarah enter the museum at night and douse it with gasoline. However, Sarah is lured into the display of Marquise de Sade, and Mark is pushed into the zombie display by the museum's 2 butlers. Mark is approached by a horde of zombies, but finds that if he does not believe in the monsters, then they do not exist and cannot harm him. Kind of like Santa. Mark finds his way out of the display and into the Marquise de Sade display, where he rescues Sarah while the Marquise vows revenge. Who, by the way, was whipping her into sexual ecstasy. So, despite Mark and Sarah's attempts to escape, they grabbed them almost as soon as they came out of the display. Wiki, come on. Junior and Lincoln grab Mark and Sarah, pulling them out of the display as Gemma and James return. Because somehow they knew Gemma and James' phone numbers. I don't know where they got the phone numbers from. I don't know how they called them. It doesn't make a ton of sense. We just needed these 2 random characters here so they could die. Anyways, Gemma gets lured into the Marquise de Sade's display, and James attempts to steal something from the zombie display. Moments later, the bodies of James and Gemma reappear as wax figures. The display is completed with the figures and their victims reanimating as evil entities. Now, here comes the exciting bit. Suddenly, Sir Wilfrid and a huge group of armed men, along with Mark's butler, Jenkins, arrives. Sir Wilfrid leads them into battle upon his mighty steed, the electric battle scooter, used for shopping and war. In the ensuing battle, several waxworks and slayers are killed, including Lincoln's butler and Mark and Sarah's former friends, now evil. And technically dead. China's, a vampire. Jenkins consoles Mark by saying the China vampire he killed was not his friend.
It's all right, sir. She wasn't human, She's been dead a long time.
Come on, we've got battles to win.
Mark duels Marquise de Sade in a sword fight, who is finally killed by Sarah with an axe. The reunited couple, which is really weird because they kind of weren't together and then the movie just kind of forced them together. Anyways, they're confronted by Lincoln, who dies getting shot by Sir Wilfrid and falls into a vat of boiling wax. Sir Wilfrid is decapitated by a werewolf as Sarah and Mark manage to escape the burning museum with their lives and begin to walk home, not noticing that the hand from the zombie display is scuttling away from the rubble. And that was basically the speed run of the final scenes in the movie. I mean, the last 20 or so minutes of this movie really redeems the hour of blandness that they called their story. You know, it starts off pretty funny with the demand and need of caffeine, but the jokes kind of die away with a few moments here and there. But once the battle chariot enters the fray, wow, the movie just becomes gold. And the other bits, the corkscrew killing of Sir Wilfrid, I mean, how the werewolf takes his head off, and the almost non-seriousness of Jenkins telling Mark it's okay, he just killed China in front of him. Even going back to the battle chariot, with just watching, just watch it charge into the fray. Like King Theoden. Then add in the fact that he's leading an army of geriatrics, really sells the scene even more. Yeah, I found this movie at random, I think on like Amazon, and I'm so glad that I did. And I thank the director, Anthony Hickox, I think that's how you say it, who's also the writer. And this was his first feature film. I just thank him, though, for making this gem. And I really have nothing outside to add to it. But outside that, I guess you guys have a good one. Bye.